Okay guys, so in the last video we saw that RTX 5060 Ti 8GB is okay for the most part, but really is lacking VRAM. Well, this particular example has 16GB, which should be more than enough, right? So we'll answer the simple question. Should you buy the RTX 5060 Ti 16GB over the 8GB? Well, at least on Stalker 2, it sure is a better purchase than the 8GB version, because you can actually play on 1080p epic. Though I'd still rather prefer having more FPS on high settings, but it's still nice to know that I'm not limited to high settings just because of the memory. And on 1440p high, natively it wasn't as smooth as with DLSS, so I'd highly recommend going with DLSS on quality for the 1440p users here. Now for Doom the Dark Ages, we didn't really encounter any problems on the 8GB model, so naturally the 16GB model was also running like a charm. But the interesting thing here is that the 16GB model was using more than 8GB of memory. But now guys, look what happens on one of the newest AAA games, Battlefield 6. This is the reason you go for the 16GB. Just watch this carefully. As you can see from the side-by-side footage, the difference is just enormous. Feels like we're comparing the 1060 to the 5060 or something, because especially on 1440p Ultra, the difference in FPS is double. And the VRAM usage on 1440p is hitting almost 10GB. But you know, 10 gigs of video memory usage does sound like a joke when we talk about Call of Duty Warzone, because it used 14GB of VRAM. Though, to be fair to the 8GB 5060 Ti, as you can see from the benchmark results, they were basically the same. And by same, I mean great performance on 1080p Extreme and 1440p Extreme on both graphics cards. Now, if you thought that the 16GB version wouldn't differ at all on CS in comparison to the 8GB version, well, you're wrong. Because we gained a bit of FPS, as you can see, though I'll be real with you guys, I can't really tell the difference without the FPS counter. Same like in Borderlands, it sort of saw an FPS increase, though a very minimal one, although as you can see, the VRAM usage was over 8GB. Though if we talk about Wukong, it doesn't care, the FPS was the same on both GPUs. Now you might be saying, what CPU should I pair my 5060 Ti with? My personal suggestion would be this exact CPU we're using right now, the Ryzen 5 9600X. But something like the Ryzen 7 7700 would be ideal as well, because from the value perspective, I don't think you'll get much more FPS with, let's say, 7800X3D or 9800X3D, because in almost every single case, we're GPU bottlenecked so far. From Intel side of things, I'd suggest going with the 14600KF or the Intel Core Ultra 5 245KF, because both of these CPUs are around 200 euros, so in the end the price would be the same as the 9600X Ryzen. And now I'll ask for your patience once again to check out these benchmark results. And just for fun, I threw in Fortnite, so if anyone is curious, it handled the game really well. So basically, we see that the 16GB GPU gives more FPS in roughly half of the games. So one thing is for sure, it will get worse in the future. Because almost every single new game released uses more than 8GB of video memory. This is why in the last video, I really recommended spending extra 50 euros and going with the 16GB 5060 Ti, or saving the 50 euros and going with a 9060 XT 16GB instead of the 8GB model. But I also understand that a 5060 Ti 8GB buyer is probably coming from like a 1066GB or something like that, and probably would be happy in the end with the purchase, because as long as you're using DLSS and not going everywhere with the highest settings possible, you really don't have much problems. But you also don't know what you're missing out on. So my suggestion still stands. If you can, please go with the 16GB version. You won't regret it, especially in the long run. If you can't, get the 9060 XT 16GB instead, and you'll get essentially the same performance and more bang for your buck. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Cheap bastard out.